Looking to improve your employee retention? Start by perfecting your onboarding and training experience for new hires. Check out Trainual to see how they can help you scale your growth and make onboarding easier and more efficient than ever. Check out the link in the show description or on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast partner page at manufacturingculturepodcast.com. Hello, and welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, where we explore company culture in the fascinating world of manufacturing. I'm your host, Jim Mayer. Today's episode features Steve Tamasi, CEO of Boston Centerless in Woburn, Mass. As a second-generation entrepreneur passionate about business, Steve understands the power of operational excellence and managing a core values-based business in a lean manufacturing environment. His leadership has resulted in a world-class manufacturing operation and the Northeast Shingo Prize silver medal. For over 30 years, Steve has actively led efforts to improve and expand workforce development for precision machining at the local and national levels as a team leader and as a team member for the National Tooling and Machining Association. He also led the National Robotics League for the past decade and is founder and board member of the Adult E-Team Machinist Training Program. Steve serves as a board member for the National Tooling and Machining Foundation, and Boston Centerless is a sponsor and mentor for the Winchester, Mass. High School robotics team. Steve holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Operations Research and Industrial Engineering from Cornell University. He also graduated from the Owner-President Management Program at Harvard Business School. In this episode, I'll talk to Steve about his experience in the manufacturing industry, the cultural journey of Boston Centerless, and his passion for workforce development. So let's dive in and learn from an experienced and knowledgeable leader in the manufacturing industry. Sit back, relax, and let's talk about the culture of manufacturing. Hey, Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jim. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for being on. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day.
No, thanks for having me.
So, Steve, before we jump into some of these questions, tell us more about Boston Centerless. How many employees do you have? What do you do? What kind of work are you working on right now?
Sure. So Boston Centerless, we have about 130 employees, and we are a supplier of precision round, primarily metal bars. We do other types of materials as well, and all different types of metals and some plastics. And we're selling into component manufacturers, be it OEMs or contract manufacturers, making very high precision round components. So about half of our business, maybe a little bit more, is medical device implants and instruments, dental implants. So a lot of titanium and stainless steels for things like screws and drills and reamers and things of that nature.
Yeah.
That's the major part of our business. We also sell into aerospace, high pressure valves and fittings and things of that nature, as well as space now as a kind of a burgeoning industry.
Sure.
And then, really anywhere there's a real high precision round component, a potential customer of ours. So, we're producing 12-foot long bars and holding like 2/10,000ths of an inch across that entire length.
Wow.
So really, really precise, which enables our customers to, with that type of consistency and lack of variation in the raw material, they can build their processes to a point where they can remove labor. We've got a term that we use: if you can't find skilled labor, buy skilled material. So you're able to build your processes because of that consistency. They run, you get better productivity, better tool life, but less cost input to produce the part. So part of the reason that we're growing, I think, so rapidly right now is that, as everybody knows, it's tough to find people. Mm-hmm. And we can offer a solution that at least minimizes the need for additional labor.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, you're an integral part of the manufacturing supply chain, but you're also a manufacturer yourself. Uh, so you are you faced with some of the same challenges that machine shops, aerospace, medical device manufacturers are facing out there with workforce development?
Oh, absolutely. It's always a challenge, and I think it's always been there in the manufacturing sector to attract, and retain and build on whatever success you've had, getting good people on board. And I think today you just need to be even more focused and more creative in how you go about, again, attracting and retaining employees.
Yeah. And we'll get to some of the specifics behind what you've done. But it's definitely a changing world and a changing workforce. And we've always experienced this, at least in the 20 plus years that I've been in the industry, of generational changes and the difference that each generation has as far as what they need from their work. But I think the events of the last 3 years have really exacerbated that a little bit. Would you agree with
I
that?
would I would absolutely agree with that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about Boston Centerless and the cultural journey. So, when did you come into the picture at Boston Centerless, and what was the culture like when you came into the picture there?
So, that's um, a very important question, I think. Um, so the company is we're in our 65th year in business. My dad started it, kind of one machine in a garage at night, right?
Hmm.
So he built a very successful business, and I came on board in '87. So
Okay.
coming up on 36 years at this point. And when I came on board, just mid 20s, trying to learn the business and everything, and um, it was pretty traditional culture, kind of top down type business in those years. And as I got more and more involved, it wasn't necessarily how I wanted to participate in a business or how I wanted to ultimately lead a business.
Hmm.
Um, and so I started to observe that there were, cliques and different factions, and people weren't always treating other people with the respect that they deserve, no matter what position you were in. And so um, that was kind of the genesis. Is really like, we need to change things.
Hmm.
I'm not here to just tell everybody what to do all the time. That's no way to build things. And so when we learned about kind of lean manufacturing back then, in the early '90s, um, we were trying to figure out, how do we launch something. And we saw a company speak at an association meeting that had been doing a lot of consulting in the space, and were really intrigued with their approach because it started with people. It started with culture. They kind of had four quadrants. You had the people side, lean tools, quality systems, and information systems, and that's kind
Hmm.
of how they broke it up. And um, so we decided to contract with them, and that was the beginning of our cultural change. And we started with the people side.
Wow.
And as part of that kind of exercise to launch things, um, we knew that we needed a set of core values. And we solicited input from the entire organization at that time, which was kind of unheard of. A lot of
Yeah.
people and some of the veterans are like, okay, what's this all about? A lot of skepticism, kind of sitting on the fence type thing. Um, and you know, it was it was the catalyst that kind of drove things from that point forward. And it takes a long time, to change a culture. It doesn't happen overnight, and especially when you're starting from, I think, quite a stark difference from where you want to go. You've got to have, incredible intestinal fortitude, and be willing to take a step back to take two forward in certain, junctures in the journey. And we were committed, and it's been, absolutely tremendous to see the evolution, over the last, almost 20, almost 30 years at this point, since we kind of started on our journey to really change how we did things and, how we operated.
That's neat. Steve, before we get to where you are currently, talk to us about that process behind defining your core values, and have they changed over the years? Have they evolved to something different than they were in the early 90s when you first went through that exercise?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And so we we spent hours with the management team working through, asking each individual what's important to you. Not so much the business, but personally. What are your personal values? How do you want to show up every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we did a bunch of brainstorming, and just continue to whittle it down and wordsmith it to hell. And, really, really a lot of time that if you kind of look back, sometimes you say, Jesus, was it worth it? In a sense that, like, if you're looking purely at the amount of time and effort to come up with, at that point, 3 words, and then the kind of the definitions beneath them.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, and then what we did is we floated that out to small groups throughout the organization to get additional input and feedback. And we distilled all that into 3 core values. At the time, it was teamwork, integrity, and quality. Okay. Mm-hmm. What makes Boston Centerless tick? Right. That was our kind of tagline. And it has evolved twice since then. As we, started bringing new people in, and the company really started to grow, and there were a lot of employees that didn't go through the initial training or weren't part of the creation of those. We recognized that it was important for us to develop an education program. We also have an extremely diverse workforce, and what, teamwork or, integrity, what it meant. And as we evolved, we found that there were certain elements that we needed to explain. So we need to have an education, right? So the first evolution, I'm not sure exactly when it was, sometime in, I think maybe within 10 years, early 2000s, we decided to change the words a little bit. So we didn't want to lose the essence of what it is, but we started with trust, initiative. We wanted to add a piece in there that kind of focused on that kind of continuous improvement mentality, always looking to, inch along and be better and better and better, right? So that was kind of to take the initiative to try to improve things. Team first, right? So and then excellence. So team first instead of teamwork. Okay, what we determined is, we're gonna, teamwork is like, it's hard for people to put that into practice. But if you say put the team first, it's very explicit what you're trying to get after, right? So that was one evolution. And then quality, everybody just focused on product quality, the quality of the product going out, and not quality of the service or anything. So we shifted that to strive for excellence. And it really made it, kind of cross-functional, and could be adopted across the entire organization.
And did you go through the same process where you elicited the feedback from at all levels of the organization at that point?
I'm not sure we went that far because they were more nuanced in a way, and we didn't
Sure.
want to lose. So we weren't trying to create anything. We were just trying to make it more applicable.
Yeah.
And then we had trust at one point. And what we learned in our educational process, we had small classroom and we're going through and we're basically telling people, to trust other people. And some feedback, some of the employees were like, well, I can't trust that person. You're asking me to trust somebody that I can't trust. And so we flipped it on its head and we said, okay, if everybody be trustworthy. So if control what you can control is yourself, and what does it mean to be trustworthy? Well, you've got to have the highest integrity, but you also have to be competent. You've got to be able to do your job. If somebody's going to hand you the ball and pass it on from one step to the next, and they want to be ensured that it's going to get done right, that's how you build trust. And with trust comes speed. So that's where kind of the evolution took place. Is we got feedback in that sense as to the effectiveness of the core values and how well they could be interpreted and acted on. And I mean, that last, kind of iteration, I think, has been tremendous for our organization.
Awesome. And so where are the values now?
So it's be trustworthy, take initiative, put the team first, and strive for excellence. Those are our core values.
Got it.
And then one last piece is, we really have always had a very, kind of operational excellence focus on the back end, all operations and everything else. And it's not that, we value streamed all different aspects and even, front office type processes and everything. But the one area where we felt we just weren't living up to the bar that we had set to be world class was on the service side. And not just externally to our customers, but internally to our internal customers. Right? There were, there was pushback and there was this, and it just wasn't at the level. It was good, but it wasn't great.
Interesting.
So 3 years ago, we contracted with a customer service consulting company, kind of a world-renowned. I had read one of his books, Secret Service, and I was just enthralled with that. And then that I read that years ago, but we finally got to a point we had kind of the proper staffing at the management level to enact something like this. So we went on a 2-day, took a cross-functional team offsite for 2 days and developed a service vision and service pillars.
Okay.
So that is part of now what we call the BC way. The BC way is kind of one wheel is core purpose, core values. Our core purpose is to be a role model for U.S. manufacturing. So, we really want people focused on wanting to be part of a team that sets the example. Right?
Got it.
And does things the right way, not just what we do, but how we do it. And then you've got the service on the other piece. So, those elements, so our service vision is raise the bar with every interaction, right? So the beauty of the core values and now the service vision is when you bring people in, they understand what the expectations are. And as you go forward, you can have conversations in any aspect of the business around these principles. So if somebody is not living up to a certain aspect, if you're not showing up, right, you're not putting the team first.
Yeah.
Right. So if you got attendance issues, so, just different things like that, sloppiness, not following through, whatever. So we tie it to these things, and it's just, we've made a transformation on our customer service side. And that I think has propelled our growth as of late. I mean, we're getting feedback all the time where you guys have kind of go above and beyond, which is part of our service, pillars is to, be extraordinary and really make people feel as though they're special, and that, you need the right people, and we've turned over the entire customer experience team. Well, no, I shouldn't say the entire, probably 3 or 4 long term, but we have 9 people in there. So we got people in with the right mindset that were excited to deliver that kind of service, and it's just been amazing.
That's great. So, that's really great. So along those lines, Steve, where is the culture now? How do you feel the culture is of Boston Centerless now that you're doing this with the internal and external customer service? You've got these core values, you've got your core purpose. Do you feel your culture is pretty strong right now?
And Jim, in all my years, it's the best it's ever been.
Really?
I mean, I I don't have to be the one pushing it.
Yeah.
It's truly organic. We've got people throughout our organization that have, just done an unbelievable job in living the core values day in and day out. So there's no substitute for, walking the talk, as I say. But when you have, 3/4 or 80% of your workforce, striving for that. I mean, we do an employee engagement survey once every 12 to 18 months, and it pretty much every single time we do the survey, the one thing that our employees grade out the highest is our culture.
That's great.
They love the culture, and like don't ever waver and everything else. And they're not afraid to call out senior management if they're not acting in those lines. Now we've got just a superb team right now, and it all comes down to people. I mean, and we just have a really unselfish, humble servant leader kind of mentality throughout the organization. So I couldn't be more, proud of the work that everybody has done. And, and we reinforce it, right, with a lot of different activities and programs and, ways to recognize. And it's really always kind of top of mind so that we're constantly showing that it's important and not just, we'll take the time to ensure that this is felt in the organization and not just said. So
I can hear the pride in your voice, Steve. I've known you for a number of years now, and I can hear the pride in your voice when you're talking about the team and the culture. And and it's very evident, like you said earlier, you don't have to be the only one promoting it anymore, right? Because you look on social media, and anytime that Boston Centerless is posting something or even tagged in something from an employee, you can see that cultural vibe. It's really it's pretty neat to watch from an outside perspective, and that's why you're on the show today, to talk about your cultural journey. So with all that being said, and the pride that your employees have, is that helping you with that recruiting effort, right? Because you've built such a healthy culture, are your employees out able to help in the recruiting effort so you don't have to put as many job postings? You've got a healthy pipeline, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think that's been the case for a real long time. I mean, we've always, since we started on this journey anyway, or at least say 5 years in. So since the 2000s, we always had a place where referrals were the number one reason, or for the number one portion of recruits coming in. But now I'd say it's absolutely having an impact. I would say it's probably 50 to 60% of the new employees we get are referrals.
Wow.
So it's really strong. People are psyched. I mean, it helps when you're doing well, right? And so, one thing we we built early on as part of this process is a gain sharing program, and it's designed to focus on the customer, but provide reward as the company, does hit certain milestones. So, you have to hit a target we're always looking to grow, and we don't make that bar very high, but we're looking to push that forward. And then you have an on-time delivery to original promise date for the customer, and you have a cost of quality, which records all of our internal and external rework and scrap as a percentage of sales. And so if they hit those three targets, then we flip over to a cost factor. And it's kind of it's a little bit of a trumped up gross margin, basically. But anything that we beat that target by, there's a formula that gets added. It becomes a percentage of whatever their W-2 is for the year.
Wow.
So we just had our largest payout in company history. Literally yesterday and today, I'm handing out the bonus checks. Best day of the year, and just
I can only imagine.
Absolutely jacked. It's but it's a great program, and it again kind of aligns everybody with the company's goals and vision, for performance levels that are just been tremendous. And so it's showing up in so many different ways. And when I talk to different people, in the industry, or just our bank, or anybody that's not necessarily in the industry.
Sure.
And I talk about, they'll say, what's your differentiator? And the number one differentiator for us is culture.
That's awesome.
Because we are so flexible and responsive and reliable for our customers. And that can't happen unless you have everybody kind of rowing in the same direction and everybody bought in on what it is you're trying to do. And, I've seen it. I've seen it when it hasn't worked, right? Because there have been times over the 30 years that, we didn't have it all right. And, we might've had wrong people in the wrong seats or whatever. And, it takes time to work through those things, and you got to build trust back up again. So I've just seen it, kind of ebb and flow, but we just happen to be right now in a really good space.
That's awesome. And that kind of, your last statement there leads me to a thought I just had. What are some of the challenges over the 30 years that you've faced in maintaining a positive and productive company culture in such a fast-paced and demanding industry that is manufacturing?
Challenges almost invariably come down to people. And, if you're not acting on people that aren't aligned and behaving and, kind of living with the BC way, the core values and the service vision, you've got to face that head on. And that's challenging, especially when they're adding value, or they have talent, but they choose, not to, play well as a team, put the team first, for instance. And if you don't act on that in a sense of trying to change it or, work that person out, that could be really damaging. But it's challenging to do that. And you have to be willing, and others in the organization have to be willing to pick up the pieces, because, any sort of transition like that, they're not typically, smooth. You've got to, you're going to have a period of time where you've got to cover for that role or whatever. And, if people are just throwing up their hands and rolling their eyes and like, why do I have to do this extra work and all that, it's a problem. So it's really about, defining. And then I think one of the other challenges is that when you're growing pretty rapidly, you have to work through these inflection points where the organization needs a complete restructuring. And when you do that, not all of the people understand, like, geez, we're doing great, why do we got to change, right? Or they're not capable of they might have been capable of taking you from point A to point B, but they're not going to take you from point B to point C.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Got it.
So you've got to kind of deal with some of those, issues as you go.
So, Steve, how crucial is your leadership team? Because you can't be everywhere all the time, right? So, how crucial is you talked a couple times about having the right people in the right place? How crucial is having the right leader that reports to you throughout the organization?
Yeah, and that's I think what's propelled us over again the last few years is we did a bit of a reorganization, and now I have 3 C-level people that report into me: chief of operations, chief of commercial. So we've brought in sales, marketing, customer experience, and business development all under one roof. Whereas before I had different people reporting into me. So it wasn't siloed necessarily, but you didn't have a common goal. They weren't huddling together every day, talking about what we need to do from a customer perspective. And then I've got kind of a CFO who handles IT, HR, and finance.
Got
it. And then getting those 3 to work in concert, when you have that, it's just truly dynamic. So that's what we've done over the last few years that kind of set us up for, not just today, but I think for a good run right now for us to grow, because the people I have are capable of really taking this business to a different level.
Yeah.
So the organization, and then getting the right people. 2 of those people are new to the organization in the last 3 years, that again truly align with the BC way. That has been incredibly powerful.
That's great. And so, how do you develop the people within BC as part of the BC way, and do some learning and development, and identify those who are ready for the next step in their career or promotion?
Well, we have a pretty robust onboarding process that involves, some of the cultural aspects, and really, especially at the leadership level, we take 2 weeks to walk them through the entire organization. They sit with all the different departments, and they get an appreciation for, the business as a whole, but also, each of the functional areas and their challenges and what they're trying to accomplish. So it gives people a real good sense of how they fit, and how they support the organization, and how the others are as well.
Yeah.
And then we spend a lot of time, and energy and money, with training. It's ongoing, and training on lean, and training on all the aspects of problem solving, and how do we look at processes to ferret out opportunities for improvement. We have a very vigorous and active idea board, and how we process those ideas into action. And we've got a steering team for our continuous improvement program. So it has to happen pretty continuously. And there's constant reminders. Another thing that we have, a program that we started a while back, is called the Golden Bar Award.
Okay.
And it is a pass around award, a recognition that any employee can recognize any other employee for really exemplifying, the core values in the BC way. Somebody, blows off a vacation day to drive a product down to a customer, or, stays late to, clean up a spill on the floor or whatever. Just kind of, somebody, another department's overwhelmed and somebody, jumps in, takes something off their plate for some period of time until they can get their head back above water. So it's amazing. And we do that on a monthly basis, and we give out BC bucks, which are these kind of, fake dollars, but they collect them, they get them, and they can trade them back in our company store for a different swag, or we have gift cards to, Lowe's or Dunkin' Donuts, supermarkets, gas cards, things of that nature. So there's kind of this revolving reward system that's in place. But the Golden Bar Award, you stand up, bring the whole company together, and we talk about and read off what the nominations were. And, it's amazing to see what, people are doing. But that gives that positive reinforcement. And there are people, I want to get the Golden Bar Award. So they really strive to do the right thing.
That's awesome.
So very cool.
Very cool. So your journey so far has been amazing, and you were doing cultural things before it was a buzzword, right? You recognize the need to make some change internally, and just knowing you the way I do, I don't think you're necessarily ever going to be 100% stagnant, right? Or satisfied isn't the right word, but I think you're always going to want to grow your culture, right? And evolve your culture. So what's the future look like culturally for BC? Where do you want to get it to?
So I just want to touch on one other piece that I think is critical, because I talk about kind of behavior and everything else. But I think, my dad was an immigrant from Italy, came over when he was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And in the early years, a lot of the employees were, Italian descent. And over the years, as we've grown, and, really in the early 2000s, we were growing very rapidly, and we were bringing people in from all over the world. And it was one of my ops managers at the time, and had this brilliant idea. It's like, hey, we've got all these different, nationalities and everything, and why don't we buy a flag and hang a flag for each one of the countries of origin of one of our, employees? And we're up to 17 flags, Jim. We have 130 people. We have 17 different immigrant nationalities in our company. And when you come on board, if you're from a country that is not part of, within 2 weeks, we have your flag up on the wall.
Wow.
And what that does, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from these new employees, is they immediately feel included. They immediately feel part of the BC team and the BC family.
Yep.
And it's become such a source of pride for everybody in the organization. And no matter what your background is or where you're from, as long as you adhere to our BC way, core values, and service vision, you're accepted, you're part of the team, and we're all moving forward together. And so I guess in some ways we were doing DEI before there was DEI. I mean, this is over 15 years ago. And now we have International Food Day every year, where people bring in their culinary, specialty, and everybody gets to try these different things. And we hold a lot of other events, over the course of the year, to help build, kind of that, take a deep breath, kind of socialize a little bit together. And that's also very important. It's not just, demands of, hey, you've got to do this, but it's taking time to appreciate the people and what they bring to the table. So the cultural aspect of the multicultural, kind of company that we've built is also really, I think, somewhat unique and really a source of pride for everybody on the team.
As it should be. I've never heard of anything like that, Steve. And I've been in hundreds, if not thousands of shops over 20 plus years. And that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. That's really neat.
Yeah. It's great.
So how do you build on that momentum? How do you build on what you've built so far? Where do you go from here?
I think the biggest thing is, from my perspective, is as you grow, it's to strengthen it, kind of with numbers, but get more people involved with the fabric of what it makes. In other words, when you're doing these different programs, make sure that it filters down through the organization. So it's not even just senior management, but, others are carrying kind of the water for what it means to be part of this group. And we're seeing that now. I mean, we really are. When there's another, great development over the last 4 to 5 years is, we, as many manufacturing companies, a lot of the senior management, has white hair, right? So, what we've done is, and I would say, it wasn't all intentional, but there was an intentionality to it, is that we needed to bring in a new, fresh kind of mindset, and so what happened is we started bringing some engineers on for summer internships. And we realized the incredible intelligence and, vitality that they brought. It was just really infectious. And so we've really added a lot. We've got a lot of, say late 20s, early 30s, mid-management in the organization that are, driving the day-to-day and just doing a fabulous job. But it's brought this kind of youthfulness and energy to the whole company, and it's been great. So you get the kind of the wise, senior veterans, and then you've got this incredible energy, and so I guess building on that going forward is just getting more and more of that in, where, you can continue to look back and say, we're just stronger today than we were, because we're adding all these elements and pieces together, and the complexity of a business and society as a whole, and not just, sticking to your old ways, but looking at evolving how you do things, and, flexibility and things of that nature, but still performing at a very high level.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the goal at this point, is just to stay current, right? Stay current and evolve, so that you're always able to attract the best and brightest, so you can continue to perform for the customers down the line.
Wow. So in that same vein, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about your involvement in workforce development, NRL, the NTMF, those kinds of organizations, and talk to us a little bit about the role that you see industry having in solving the skills gap issue, and building that robust pipeline that's sustainable for manufacturing careers.
So I've been at this for 30 years anyway, in terms of my involvement. It started by going to some local association meetings, and after a couple of years of hearing everybody bemoan the lack of skilled labor, I kind of said to myself, I'm not gonna just talk about it, right? I'm gonna try to do whatever I can, even if it's a drop in the ocean, try to make a change. And so I think what's, in all those years, we've never been in an environment that is so pro manufacturing from a public sector standpoint.
Yeah.
You truly have the government's, attention as to how critical manufacturing is. And we've been, top of the mountain screaming that for 30 years, and finally get the attention. And so I think that's on our side now. And now it's a matter of public relations. I think what's really, really important for manufacturers to kind of put themselves out there, show the industry in the best light, be involved, be active, talking to schools, talking to, your local officials, your state officials, get involved. There's no substitute. And I think the more that people do that, and the more companies and owners and people in the manufacturing sector that get involved, the more attention and the more inertia we have in terms of making some changes.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is about, you get what you put in. And I think I've never approached my involvement from a purely self-serving standpoint. Like, I'm going to do this so it helps my company.
Sure.
I've done it because I wanted to help the industry. But as a result, one of the byproducts is that you're seen and heard. And so people are attracted to want to help because you're helping, right? So you get what you put in, you get, in return, multiple times over.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have, if you look at just the activities that you're doing and you want to get an ROI on every single thing that you do and all the time you spend, it's not going to happen. You got to look at it from a holistic standpoint, and, be kind of resolute and confident that if I do this over a period of time, it's going to be beneficial to, the industry, but my organization as well. And so that's why I've always kind of taken the approach to be involved. And I really believe that people, the general public, is missing some great opportunities by not considering manufacturing for a career.
Yeah.
I mean, in our company, only about half of the workers are actually, machine operators. You've got customer service, you've got sales, you've got, production control and finance and purchasing, and there's all these different things. And, being part of something where you're making something, you're making a contribution, and you're working with these, kind of cool industries and products that, help put people in space, or, get a knee replacement or whatever that really helps them with their quality of life. That's rewarding. And so, I think I talked about what, manufacturers can do, but I think the biggest assistance that we need as manufacturers, because many are small, kind of family business who are very busy.
Yep.
We need the backing of the government from a public relations standpoint to spread the word that there's a lot of good stuff happening in manufacturing, and compensation is a lot better than a lot of these service jobs.
Absolutely.
So there's that as well. And anyway, that's just my stance on things.
No, I think it's great. The guest we had on last week, or one of the 6 people that joined us, is a gentleman by the name of Nate Bowman, and he's known as the weld scientist, and he travels the country working with young people to get them interested in careers in welding. And we talked for a little bit about the parental issue, right? And right now, what we're seeing, at least out here in the West, and Nate kind of echoed it, maybe you can shed a little bit of light for the East Coast there, but the generation that has kids now that are looking at developing their career pathways are part of that generation, my generation, right? Graduated high school in the late 90s, early to late 90s, may or may not have still had shop class, but we were part of that first generation that was really pushed into 4-year degrees, right? 4-year degrees for all. And so now we're having kids that are starting to look at career pathways, and we're seeing the same thing that happened to us happen with these parents. They're saying, oh, go to school, go to school. Are you seeing that same thing out in your area with parents? And in your eyes, how do we address that?
Yes, I think, we do still see that, and I would think, to be honest, and it's probably most prevalent in the Northeast, just
Sure.
because of the kind of, hard driving mindset of a lot of people up here, and the deep, ties to education, and certainly in the
Mhm.
Boston area. I mean, it's crazy,
Right.
the amount of universities and colleges we have. But um, I do think that people are at least beginning to take pause from that perspective because of the costs. And I think that um, I don't believe in tuition reimbursement. I think it's sends the wrong message.
Sure.
I think that people should, if the government were to do anything, they should get on the universities to to not have this kind of mentality. They can just raise prices 5% a year. And they need to get more in line, with helping the greater population. But I think that um, there's work to be done there, because it's still, kind of this mentality. But I think what people miss is, you don't have, just because you go into a trade doesn't mean that you can't ultimately get a 4-year degree,
Right.
right? So, but you can graduate into that. I think this idea of, I'm going to go, kind of, I mean, let's face it, a lot of the 4-year college right out of high school is designed to help people find out who they are and all this kind of stuff. And that involves a lot of kind of extracurricular activities that aren't necessarily related to pure education.
Sure.
And I think that's what I think people feel like they're missing out on if they don't go to the 4-year school, you
Sure.
know? But I'm not sure how you get around that. But I think spreading the word that there are a lot of opportunities, outside of that, and then you can, we'll have people come in and start, in machining, but end up getting an engineering degree
Yeah.
because they find it's interesting, but they want to learn and advance their education and knowledge and still be part of this. So there are paths that are kind of non-traditional, but get you to the same place.
Yeah. No, I think, and that was a unique take on it, is that experience, right? And I don't know if I've heard anybody talk about that post high school, post secondary schooling experience that people get, that really doesn't have much to do with their education. It doesn't have to do with going to classes at ASU or Cornell or Boston College or anything like that. It's a socialization of what happens when you are on your own for the first time,
Right.
and I think that's almost more valuable than the education in some instances. So that's a unique take, and I like that a lot. Um, it, it, we talk about the pathways, and you talked about graduating from machinist into or operator or whatever into the engineering. How do you think we can kind of accelerate that? I know in Arizona, there's a big push right now for dual enrollment, right? For high school juniors and seniors to also be able to take community college courses, and the effectiveness of those students then being able to not only finish that community college associate's degree or certificate program, trade program, but they're also then going on into 4-year programs with the entry, the gen ed credits taken care of already, right? Is that a solution for us moving forward? Is that dual enrollment?
Yeah, I think we need to be creative in how we approach this stuff. So, I think that makes a lot of sense from my perspective.
Awesome. Awesome. Uh, Steve, you've given us more than 3 initiatives that you've implemented at Boston Centerless as far as things that affected your culture in a positive way. Is there anything else that you want to add to the great tips, tricks, and best demonstrated practices you've given us already?
The only thing I would add is that I think manufacturers should take advantage and learn what's available in their state for funding, for grants, and take advantage of those. So Massachusetts has a workforce training fund grants that will pay for the instruction of various topics to help you, advance your organization. And we have, we got a grant to start our journey 28 years ago to pay for all the consultancy and the time. We have to match that with in kind.
Sure.
It's not hard to do that when you're putting, 10, 20, 30 people in a room
Right.
for a few hours or a day or whatever. But we have applied for and received numerous grants over the last 25 years. And the last few we have continuously woven in English as a second language classes.
Really?
So we've opened the door to not only the multicultural, but in some cases non-English speaking employees. We've done a lot to bring non-English speaking people in, use translators at the supervisory level to assist them with, job instructions and things of that nature, and then teach them how to, read and speak English. And so that opens up the door to a broader base of potential employees. And there's work and there's time and there's energy associated with that, but it's very rewarding. And again, it's just this sense that, hey, these people at the company are really looking after me and helping me, become more valuable, not only to the company, but for myself and, my personal life and everything else. So I would say take advantage of, kind of the grants at the state level and invest in your people, because that builds a culture of continuous improvement and continuous learning, which is critical to stay, ahead and, in tune with the increasing demands that are put on our industry. Whether it's information technology, whether it's industry 4.0 and all these kind of digitization type things, you've got to have an educated workforce to do that. So invest in training.
Wow.
It's another big thing.
Steve, that last bit, the interpreters and non-English speaking practices, that gave me chills, man. That's a really neat, that's gotta build such trust with those incoming employees that they're then wanting to run through walls for you.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting to see the evolution. And in some cases, the employees kind of willingness to really take advantage of that and dive in. We've got one example with a person came from Bosnia and really had virtually no English speaking skills. We put him in the warehouse and, through a lot of instruction was able to, kind of pull jobs and issue material to the floor. Didn't require a lot of English speaking, but he was aggressive and he wanted to earn more money. And, we said, you got to learn language. And so, we put him through and he took and augmented it with some outside training. And in 2 years, he's now a supervisor and is making, I don't know, 50, 60% more than he was when he came in.
Wow.
So he, and actually, I think even more than that. So he, and now his English is to the point where he can direct other people. And you're right. I mean, his loyalty, to Boston Centerless, because we were, we lived up to our, end of the bargain that if you do this, you get that. And then, somebody else comes in and he can tell that story. It's really powerful.
That's That's absolutely amazing. I through LinkedIn get people from other countries reaching out all the time, asking how to get into companies as engineers in the U.S. Right, and I never know where to send them. You might start getting some emails from me, Steve.
That would be tremendous. Would love it.
Yeah, I never know what to do with those notes, right? And I feel for these people that want to create a different life for themselves, and they look at manufacturing careers as the way to do that in the U.S. And I just don't necessarily know where to direct them. So you're gonna be the first person I email from here on out. So Steve, I really want to thank you for being on today. This was a great conversation, and I'm planning on taking the show on the road over the summer, hopefully, and would love to come in and see Boston Centerless. Over all the years that we've known each other, never been into the facility, so I'd love to come check out your operations
That'd be
and
fantastic. Love to
give the
have you.
listeners a peek into some of the facilities that we're actually talking with leaders from. So can't wait to do that. Look forward to it. Maybe we can get a dead show in while I'm out there. So everybody, that's a wrap for today's episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. A huge thank you to our guest, Steve Tamasi, for sharing his incredible journey with us and giving us a glimpse into the cultural journey of Boston Centerless. His vision for the future, his passion for innovation when it comes to culture, and his commitment to building a positive company culture is truly inspiring. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you have any questions for Steve or comments about the episode, please contact us at manufacturingculturepodcast.com. And remember to subscribe to our podcast for future episodes featuring other experts and leaders in the manufacturing industry. Join us again next time for another exciting episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, where we will continue to explore company cultures in the fascinating world of manufacturing. Until then, have a great day and keep making things.